Okay, evening everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Audit Committee on Wednesday, 24th of September 2025. May I remind everyone present this meeting is being broadcast live via YouTube and the recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all councillors and officers ensure that when they speak, they switch their microphones on, and when they're finished speaking, they turn their microphones off. It's extremely important for the live stream to ensure the cameras will be focused on the individual who's speaking. Going to the agenda, item number 1, apologies for absence. Could we receive any apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Beach and Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Emily. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest to declare on the items under discussion tonight? No, thank you.
No.
Thanks, Steve. Item 3, to consider any urgent business brought forward under Rule 12. I'm not aware of any urgent business for tonight's meeting. No, thank you. Item 4, questions from the public. We haven't received any questions from members of the public. Item 5, questions from members of the committee. We haven't received any questions from members of the committee. Item 6, public minutes of the previous meeting on the 25th of June 2025. Any comment on those minutes? In that case, I propose we accept them. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Krupski, thank you. Go to the vote. All those in favour? Yeah. Great, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, guys. Votes carried. Item 7, internal audit progress report. So I invite Tracy and Ruby from 360 Assurance to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the progress report as read, if I may. I just draw members' attention to the following. So we have issued the Disabled Facilities Grant Certification. We have been busy arranging planning meetings and agreeing terms of reference with officers, and a number of reviews are progressing with field work. The follow-up position is a positive position. Whilst the overall implementation rate is slightly lower than the year-end position, the first follow-up rate for the high and medium risks is currently sitting at 60%, which is a more positive position than year-end. There are no high or historic risks outstanding. Appendix C provides the details of all the terms of reference that have been agreed for the audits in the audit plan so far. Appendix D provides the KPI position, and Appendix E includes the action tracking position in a little bit more detail. And I'll pause there to take questions.
Thanks, Ruby. Any questions? Councillor Slater.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, just a technical question. I've been on the planning committee for a couple of years now, and I'm still learning about it. The 106 agreements, it meant... Forgive me, until I read your report, I always assumed the 106 agreements are all about agreements that involve the cash sum of money, which is all I've always seen on the applications that we've asked the applicant to provide a sum of money to cover health or education or whatever. I notice on here it talks about the first 4 bullet points: restriction of development of land, requires use of land in a specific way, that sort of thing. And what I want to know is obviously I have to study this in more detail. I'm sorry, I've not studied it enough. But I take it there are agreements then that don't involve the exchange of cash from the developer to the planning to the council. Is that right? That's what I'm getting at. Does that make sense? I know. Sorry, I've only read this recently. I do apologise.
No, it does, but I would have to check with the planning manager. I wouldn't have that level of detail, I'm afraid. Yes,
well, it's on your thing here. So it mentions planning obligations may be used in certain ways, and you've got 4 nice little bullet points there, and all the others I can see seem to be regarding payment, but the first 4 seem to be regarding things that we will impose restrictions on or require the developer to do. And forgive me, as I sit on the planning committee and along with Steve on the development plan committee, this is stuff that's of interest to me to know how we can use it properly in the future. That's all it is.
The council may well have such agreements in place, but like I said, we're just starting the field work on that audit, so I wouldn't be able to comment straight away.
I'll stop there. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Councillor Slater. Any further questions? Councillor Sankey, is that you indicating?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, it's nice to see the percentage this year compared to last year is about the same and slightly more progress, so that's good news. The one I really got was the cybersecurity audit. given the, how can I put it, the high propensity of cyber attacks in the UK at the moment, should that one go up the ladder a little bit? You know, given we just feel like as a country we are being attacked in that way quite a lot, and you know, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they want, you know, they've hit commercial ones, but actually hitting a lot of local government ones, which are probably easier target than some of the central government ones, might be another soft target to hit. So I really sort of want to know where we are on that, and has there been done any preparation other than the TOR stuff? Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey.
Yes, we have had some information already from the officer who's leading on cybersecurity, and field work is planned to start early Q3, if that helps, Councillor Sankey.
Right. So can I ask, if I may, without obviously information, given it's a public meeting, are you, the information you've had so far, you are happy that there are no immediate issues that need to be addressed?
I would have to liaise with the auditor undertaking the review, but from the information that I've seen so far, no issues that I would need to draw to Lloyd's attention, for example.
Okay, so effectively all our software is up to date and everything's nice and secure?
No, Councillor Sankey, I've just some information has been received in respect of the audit, not all, and I wouldn't feel comfortable commenting or making such a comment at this stage.
No, I wouldn't expect you to make it a public meeting, but so not all our software is up to date, is what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I don't have enough information provided to make that assessment.
Okay, I'll leave it at that then, thank you.
And as the audit progresses,
Thank
we'll
you.
be in a better position to make that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions? I said one on section 106, if that's okay. So there's a bullet point in there around, so third bullet point is objective and scope around collecting the money at appropriate trigger points. Obviously, there was a historic issue around spending a section 106 income. Will the audit focus on the trigger points for spending the money as well as collecting it, if that makes sense? The processes for making sure we spend it?
Yes, it will.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if no further questions, we'll move on. Thank you, Ruby and Tracy. So you can bear with me. So item 8 is the external audit progress update, and I invite Laura to provide an update.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to give a progress update on the external audit, which is nearing completion. We are expecting to complete the audit around next Friday. So unfortunately, the timing of this committee meant that it was slightly too early to take our final report to. But we have identified a couple of findings that we thought helpful to bring to the committee's attention. So what we will do is Beth will cover those couple of points, and we will be attending the next month meeting as well to close down the audit. It has gone to plan. We did experience a couple of delays at the beginning, both on council side and on our side. We had one of our team members go off on maternity leave early, so that's caused a bit of a resource challenge. We are also waiting for assurances from the County Council pension fund auditors, as we were last year, but we are more confident this year that we will receive them by the 30th of September, so that should facilitate a mid-October kind of sign-off of the audit. I'll pass over to Beth then to give the details of the two findings that we want to bring attention to. But what I would say before Beth covers them is both of the findings that we have to report to you are off the back of management recommendations that we made last year. So we made some recommendations at the end of the audit. Management have actioned those appropriately, which is really positive to see, but that has led to some findings that are being addressed through this year's audit. So whilst it's leading to changes, it's a positive process that the council's been through to address some of the weaknesses that we found last year.
Thanks, Laura. So the report focuses on the risks that we reported in our audit plan earlier this year and just outlines sort of progress against each of those risks. So page 2 of our report, I don't propose going through in detail. Page 3 sets out some of the progress that we have addressed through the risk of valuation of land and buildings and investment property. So as Laura mentioned, we recommended in our audit findings from the prior year that management consider updating some of the records that were held from the measurements of floor areas that drive the valuation of particular buildings. This has led to the council completing that recommendation, and upon that review that was instructed to the valuer, we have identified from that there are a number of different measurements for the assets that are valued based on floor area. So what that has led to is a adjustment to the prior year valuation of a number of buildings. We've set that out in the detail on in the narrative on page 3. So management are still working through what that adjustment looks like to provide us with an updated disclosure for us to audit in detail. But we know that that has resulted in a reduction of the valuation of around 2.8 million, which will be processed as a prior period adjustment. I think that's everything on that point. If we move over to page 4, this section outlines the fact that we identified a risk at planning for the implementation of a new accounting standard, IFRS 16, which relates to assets that the council has the right to use but don't actually own. For this, we identified at planning that there was a completeness risk around this implementation, being that the council may miss assets that fall into scope of this accounting standard. So we have actually identified as part of the audit that there were a number of assets that haven't been accounted for in line with this new accounting standard. So we are proposing an adjustment to the financial statements in relation to this, which is set out in the narrative on page 4. So that work is currently with us that we're undertaking to get comfortable over that proposed adjustment. And that will appear, the detail of that in our audit findings report next month. That's everything in terms of risk. We have also included further in the report an update on our value for money work. So the value for money work has concluded. That's sat within the final stages of Laura's review. We haven't identified any significant weaknesses in the council's arrangements to secure value for money, which is really positive. And we're also in the process of just confirming whether there are any other best practice recommendations that we can make as part of that work as well. But I'm happy to take any questions on the progress report or anything else to do with the audit.
Yeah, thanks both, it's really helpful, positive. Any questions? Councillor Krupski.
Yes, thank you. I was just interested to know when the original measurements were taken.
I might have to direct that question to Lloyd because it was pre our engagement as auditors. It was our first year with you last year.
Yeah, I couldn't, sorry, just wait for the camera. I couldn't say right away when the last internal measurements were. I think the finding last year identified it had been a significant amount of time. So as part of the valuations this year, we did ask the valuer to carry out updated measurements of the internal parts of the buildings, and that's what's led to this finding. So as Laura set out, whilst we've accounted for the values correctly in the 24-25 year, there's obviously a corresponding impact in the prior year, which we're looking at now.
Thank you.
Councillor Slater.
Thank you. Yes, more about valuation of land and buildings. I take it you're doing land next door, land as opposed to buildings, yeah?
Yes, our audit does cover both the land and
Thank
the
you.
buildings.
I beg your pardon. Of course you are. I beg your pardon. The point is that last year I was looking forward to getting some trees planted on a bit of land that the council said it owned, and it didn't own that land in the end. At the last minute they told me they'd sold it some years ago, and I was under the impression they were going to produce a map of land ownership. And have you seen one yet, by any chance? Have you not seen a map of what land the council owns?
We've obtained everything we need to from a completeness perspective, but I don't know, Lloyd, if you want to come in on that.
Yeah, so there is ongoing work with the estates team in terms of the terrier that they operate and updating that, so to make sure we have got a full up-to-date map of all the land that is in the council's ownership. So that work is ongoing. I think it was one of in terms of the actions for that, they were identified within an internal audit report as well, which I think Ruby has been updating committee on previously. And I know the relevant head of service, John Teasdale, has come along, I think it was 2 meetings ago, to provide an update on that work as well. So it is ongoing.
Thank you, Councillor Slater. Any further questions? Councillor Sankey?
I've got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'll follow on from that last question. There's further work going on about it. This is one that I think Michael and I have both been aware of. We need to be clear on which land we own. I know there's further work going on about it. Do we have a date of when it will be completed?
Unfortunately, no, I haven't got an up-to-date date. Again, we can ask, because I know it is an ongoing area of work, as I said, that John had come to a previous committee about. It is within the committee's remit to ask him to come along again if it's an item of significant importance for you, and give you a further update, including timescales that they're now working to on that, if committee wish to do so.
Happy to suggest that, everyone.
Yeah, Chair. I mean, if the information is it's coming fairly soon, then I think we just had a written one that says it's going to be in X weeks or whatever. Then I think it's fine. If it's going to be longer, then it'd be helpful that John Teasdale comes on and explains the cause of the delay.
Yeah, is everyone happy with that? So maybe we could ask the monitoring officer for an update, and if it is a significant delay, then we'll ask him to come to October or November, maybe. Chair, could I just have one other question? We mentioned that we were positive about the county from the pension side, which is nice, but maybe I'm just cynical. We've got a meeting, I think, on the 22nd. How confident are we for that meeting? Because obviously that would be the ideal meeting. So do we need to change that meeting a week or whatever? It doesn't make sense having that meeting if we're suddenly going to get the information a week later. We need to sort of pin it down at the right time, I think, if I may suggest, Chair. Yeah, I believe we're fairly confident, but I'll let everyone update on that.
Sorry, Chair, thank you. I think, obviously, we're working to, as Laura and Beth said earlier, we're working to have those assurances from the pension fund by the end of September. There is a risk, as Councillor Sankey pointed out, that we won't get it by that date, and there has been a delay in previous years. But I think the approach we could take in that instance is to still have the meeting on the 22nd of October, give Audit Committee an update in terms of the audit findings report, and that being the only outstanding item. What we have done in previous years, if that's the case, is ask committee to delegate authority to the chair to sign off the accounts once we receive those assurances, if there's no significant impact or other findings.
Yeah, so that could be our backstop.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem, Councillor Sankey. Any further questions? In that case, move on. Thank you very much, Laura and Bethany. Item 9 is the Corporate and Strategic Risk Report for 25-26, Quarter 1, and invite Dan to present the report as Chief Accountant.
Thank you, Chair. The report provides an overview of the strategic risks facing the authority as at the end of Quarter 1, 2025-26, and the actions taken or being taken to manage those risks. There have been no additional additions to the strategic risk register as at Quarter 1. However, the items have been renumbered from the last report as at Quarter 4 2024-25, following the removal of one individual risk relating to COVID-19. 13 of the total 17 risks have target scores lower than the currently reported risk score, and progress against these targets will be monitored in future quarters in line with the review timescales for each individual risk. There have been no changes to the current risk scores since those most recently reported as at Q4 2024-25, and the recommendations to the Audit Committee are set out at section 11. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions? Councillor Sankey?
Looking at the risks, we've got 4 risks that are rated as 25s. Business rates retention scheme, central funding, MTFS, and unitary. The one that I was concerned about, I was interested in, is the unitary one. Currently views it as rather than a 5 times 5, it's 5 times 4. The likelihood of it being 4 rather than a 5, and I was intrigued at that, because when I look at where we are at the moment on the unitary status, virtually all the political parties are proposing some form of moving that East Staff disappears. If you like, Labour say this is what we're trying to do and rationalise saving money to save more efficient. The Conservative administration at the county has previously suggested an all county or us with north south, and the Reform have suggested east west. So there hasn't been any that says we stay as we are. So there's a good working assumption that say the likelihood, a very strong likelihood, 5 out of 5, is that we are going to be disbanded. So I was just intrigued why we are not having that 5. Nobody has put forward that we should be stay as we are.
Good question. Lloyd?
I think it's probably a slight misinterpretation of the risk. So I think the reality is local government reorganisation is going to happen. So as set out in the risk, there's a white paper from government and a drive from government to reorganise 2-tier authorities across the country. So it's not that this is a risk of is it going to happen or not. It will happen unless something significant changes at a national level. I think this is trying to set out what's the risk to the authority in terms of making sure we are ready for reorganisation. So there are a number of impacts and pieces of work we need to do to prepare for that, both in terms of an initial submission to government in November, and then based on the government's decision for what might be, as you've just said, Councillor Sankey, a range of options that are put forward to it. Once we've got the outcome from government in terms of their preferred option, are we ready for that new authority being in place from April 28? So it's trying to reflect on that risk. Are we ready for both the submission in November and then leading up to April 28, are we ready for that reorganisation to happen? Not whether or not it will take place, because it will happen.
So could I follow on from that, Chair? So therefore, if it's are we ready, that implies then that as it's a slightly lower risk, that we're not fully ready. Is that, have I missed?
No, I think you've interpreted
the current risk situation would.
You've interpreted that correctly, Councillor Sankey. So obviously, reorganisation itself won't happen under the government's current timescales until April 28. So yes, we aren't ready for it yet. There's a significant piece of work to do once we know the government's preferred option to get us ready to support that new organisation and to hand over services. So it wouldn't be a green risk at this point in time because of all the work that's required once we've got that decision from government.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. So from November, assuming that there's the decision point, we hopefully see some movement on that one.
Potentially, albeit that, as Councillor Sankey quite rightly pointed out, that's this council putting forward its preferred option, and there's likely to be a range of competing options that are put forward for government to consider.
Okay, thank you, Lloyd. Any other questions? Okay, that can move on. Thank you, Dan, for presenting that report. Staying with you though for item 10, so it's the Treasury Management Update Report 25-26, Quarter 1. Back to Dan.
Thank you, Chair. In summary, the report confirms that the Council's Treasury Management activities during Quarter 1 of 2025-26 have been in line with the approved Treasury Management strategy, with the highlights set out in the report as follows. The Council's external borrowing is £3.81 million as at 30th of June 2025, with an average interest rate payable of 4.94%. The investments as at the 30th of June stood at 46.2 million, with investment returns from the start of the financial year having averaged 4.52%. This gives a forecast of 20k overachievement of budgeted income as at Q1, with Appendix A of the report providing full details of the investments held as at the 30th of June 2025. The committee is recommended to note the position at Q1.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions? No. I just had one question back to... Oh, sorry, Councillor Sankey, you coming off mute there. Did you want to ask a question first?
Thank you. It was only to do with the investment reduction, and the obviously explanation there is around government monies that have been effectively been used. Are there any reductions as a result of our spending of the money? I understand it's gone from 60 odd and the 40 odd, it's dropped down a little bit this current year, but is there any of the investments dropped as a result of ESBC spending the extra money out of the investments?
In essence, no. So what we do when we set the budget each year is we look at our cash flow or our forecast cash flow over the MTFS period. So our cash balances have been quite high over the last few years, mainly linked to the Towns Fund, where government pays us that grant, and it's quite a significant amount of money up front each year. But that's obviously a long-term capital project where we're not spending that money for some period of time. So we've had an artificially high cash position for a number of years, and as we spend that money on the Towns Fund projects, our cash reduces across the MTFS period. So the reduction we've seen at Q1 is in line with what we'd expected to see during 2025-26. And as we carry on with that Towns Fund programme, we are expecting to see our cash balances continue to reduce by about £5 million a year over the next few years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sankey. My question is just going to be around investment. So are we continuing to invest as if the SBC were going to be here indefinitely? So we're still investing in long-term investments, even though obviously we may likely not be here.
Yes, but so the answer to the question is yes, but only a small proportion of our investments are tied up in long-term investments. So we have to balance, in line with some of the training we've had with Audit Committee before, the requirements of the Treasury Management Code. So obviously security is the first requirement in terms of are we investing with credit-worthy counterparties. Liquidity, so the second requirement is can we access the cash when we need it. And obviously we've got money going out for the council month on month, so we have invoices we pay each week or each month, we have payroll going out each month. So we need to be able to access a big proportion of our cash throughout the year. So only a small amount of our investments are for a longer period of time. And that's in line with what most authorities across Staffordshire and the country would do as well.
Thank you, Lloyd. Any last questions on that item? Okay. Thank you again, Dan, for that report. We'll move on to item 11. That's Q1 reporting of write-offs. And this one's with Lloyd as CFO to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So this is one of our standing reports where, in line with the requirements of the Constitution, we report to Audit Committee on a quarterly basis any write-offs. Whilst for the last few quarters we haven't had any write-offs, as at Q1 of 25-26 there were two write-offs in terms of EDRs that we undertook during the quarter, and they're set out within the table in the report. I think members will have seen the background to these previously with the EDRs that are shared on a weekly basis. The biggest one relates to housing benefit overpayments, and there are a number of categories there where we have written off debt relating to housing benefits. Most of those relate to debts that have become statute barred or are small in nature, or where we've exhausted other recovery options. And in line with good practice and SIPFA's code of practice, we are looking to write off debts at the point that they're judged to be uncollectible. So that's the first one. The second one is a much smaller one, one debt in relation to council tax, which was challenged by a landlord renting out the property, and the tenant who was judged to be or deemed to be responsible for that council tax was already an existing debtor that we've struggled to locate. So it's a small amount of money, and because of that and the background, we've written that off as well. So the recommendations for the committee are to note the write-offs during the quarter, and also to note that further updates will come to committee on a quarterly basis.
Thank you, Lloyd. Any questions? Councillor Hudson.
Yes, just an observation really. I mean, we've got £603,000 worth of housing benefit that we've had to write off. Is there any, I know it's not in your realms, Lloyd, but is there anything that the council can do to try and avoid paying it out in the first place? I mean, I know why we've had to write it off, because I've been on the committee for many years, and I know we've exhausted everything we can do to get it back, but it's a lot of money, that is.
It's obviously a very difficult position in terms of the background to this. So most people claiming housing benefits, they're in jobs which their income may vary on a month-to-month basis. So it's quite easy for us to end up in an overpayment position where we pay them more housing benefit than they're entitled to. But because of the nature of their income varying, it's then very difficult to try and recover that money. So we end up with payment arrangements for an extended period of time for a lot of these people. And we are talking about people who are struggling financially, and that money is there to help them in terms of deprivation that they would otherwise face. So it is difficult to, once we've overpaid, to claw back that money in the instance of housing benefits. Can we avoid paying it out in the first place and avoid the overpayment? We do try, but as I said, because of the nature of the jobs that people who are claiming housing benefit are in, it is very difficult to avoid that.
Thank you, Councillor Hudson. Councillor Slater.
Sorry, well, same area of question. Is the amount of debt we're writing off similar to what other authorities would be writing off? Is that something the audit people sort out as?
I think it's important to note that perhaps for housing benefit, we haven't written off a significant amount of money for a long period of time. So the biggest element within that, £350,000, related to debt which is more than 6 years old, and that's because we haven't written it off in that period of time. So I think with the increased focus on it now, with both myself starting as 151 officer last year, and we've got a new head of service in this place who also started within the last 12 months, we are trying to catch up with some of that housekeeping and tidying up that hasn't been done for a number of years. And as I said, in line with best practice and the requirements of the code, where we recognise that debt isn't recoverable, we should be writing that off in a timely manner, which we perhaps haven't been doing for a number of years. So there is an element of catch-up, so it's probably higher than authorities would normally see on an annual basis, but it's because a big proportion of that relates to debt which is over 6 years old now. So we're playing catch-up in effect.
Thank you, Councillor Slater. Councillor Huckabee.
A deeper consideration of those debts so that we could either take a beneficial view or a benign view, or whether we thought that we were being taken for one. We do have a cost of living crisis payment. I don't know whether there's any alignment between that particular fund and this particular loss, but it might be the case that those who are desperate for help actually sit on this list somewhere. So part of the work of identifying these people is already done for us. A bit more work. From what I can make out, it's the cost of living crisis money is based on first come, first served, as long as you justify certain parameters, which we know historically, nationally, these monies don't get to the people who deserve it most. This is why there's universal policies to make sure that everybody gets it, so those that really need it do get it anyway, rather than fail to claim. There's a question in there somewhere.
I think yeah, it's quite a complex question. I think the simple answer though is, because the vast majority of these debts relate to a period of more than 6 years ago, it's probably not the same people that are potentially suffering with the cost of living crisis over the last few years. It is historic overpayments because of the fluctuating nature of people's income on a monthly basis. And as I said, the big proportion of it relates to a period from before 2018.
Thank you both. Any other questions? Just picking up, I meant to say it when Council's finished this question, but I can see on item 8 for the internal audit plan, we've got benefits in there. So to go back to Council's question about the mechanisms for distributing benefit, presumably those would be covered in the audit of that area.
Yes, part of the benefit review, we do look at how the council is recovering housing benefit overpayments and the write-off processes.
Okay, thank you. If no more questions, we will move on. Thank you, Lloyd, for that report. So we come to item 12, date of the next meeting. So that's the 22nd of October 25. Thanks to everybody for agreeing for that. We thought it'd be handy to have one in to not elongate the sign-off process. So hopefully we'll have the assurances and we're ready to go on 22nd of October 25. We now have 4 items to consider in private, so I'll now move that in accordance with section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting as it's likely, in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the proceedings, there be disclosed exempt information as defined in paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act, indicating the brackets for each item number on the agenda. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Krupski, thank you. Go to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you, Steve. And the vote's carried. I'll wait for